So what are secondary dominant chords? In order to know what that is and how it works, we need to first understand what a primary dominant chord is. Before we get into this lesson, go download my free guide, What Do Pro Musicians Know That You Don't, at gospelprogressionsuniversity.com/Gospel Keys Pro. A primary dominant is just the fifth diatonic chord of the scale. Diatonic simply means no sharps, flats, or accidentals are played, so there are no altered or colored tones in any of the chords of that scale. So for example, the diatonic scale of C would be just all white notes, so just everything that belongs to the key of C. You won't really hear the term primary dominant being thrown around. People are just likely to say dominant chord, and everyone knows what that means. In the key of C major, the primary dominant chord would be G, or G7, which is the fifth interval of C major. So our primary would be G, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. However, in order to get to the secondary dominant chord, we actually need non-diatonic notes. So a typical secondary dominant in the key of C major would be D major. The F sharp is the third of D major, or the major third. Playing F sharp and C over D, now that makes it a dominant 7 chord. So when we play a D7 chord in the key of C major, we are shifting the key center. This results in the following chord resolving to another chord or scale degree that isn't the tonic, or in this case, C major. The D7 resolves really nicely to G7. This type of secondary dominant progression is very common. So this is where we resolve from the dominant 2 chord over to a dominant 5 chord, resolving to a major 1 chord. So since this D7 is the fifth interval of G major would be, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. It's the fifth of the fifth. So in other words, we would say the dominant of the dominant. So this D7 in the key of C will be a 5 of 5. And then we resolve there. So we have our dominant 7 here, or a dominant 7, which is a 5 of G. And then we go to the dominant of C, which is the 5 of C, and then we resolve right back to C major, or, we can play C major 9 or C major 7. So this is a portion of the song, Blessed Be the Name of the Lord, in E major. While there are a lot of other things going on, I need you to pay attention to the last few chords I'm playing before I end that portion of the song. The chords that I want you to look at are the C diminished chord and the D diminished 7th, or the C diminished 7th chord and the D diminished 7th chord. When we use the secondary dominant chords, they tend to create so much tension that the chords are begging to be resolved. So I just end up using them as passing chords. And what I really could be playing is the G sharp 7, all right, to that C sharp minor 7, and I can do the same thing, and I can just play C sharp dominant to the F sharp chord, the F sharp minor 7 chord. Theoretically, I'm still playing a secondary dominant, but I kind of altered some of the chords there. So what I did, the major third, because in C sharp, or I'm sorry, in E, the A flat is the third, it would be a minor, but we're playing it as a major. So I'm going to take the major third from the G sharp. Instead of this, it'll be this, all right? And I'm going here and just resolving it here, okay? Here's something to pay attention to. As I'm resolving, I'm going from this chord here, okay, over to this chord here. What I'm doing is actually playing the same progression as far as the 5 of the 5, or I'm actually doing a secondary dominant to go into the C sharp, but prior to that, I could be doing this, because I'm playing all of these are going to be your major, G sharp major, all right? And then you have your flat 7, and you also have your flat 9. So in essence, I'm doing this to do that, to resolve here to the C sharp minor 7, and then to resolve to the F sharp. I'm actually going to do this, but instead of doing this, I actually took the diminished chord and went to that 5 of the F sharp, which would be D flat. So I also have D flat dominant, or C sharp rather, because we're in E, with a flat 9. So I'm doing this to resolve here, and this to resolve over to the F sharp minor 7th. So what you learn is that the primary dominant or dominant chord is the chord from the 5th interval of the major scale. Secondary dominant chords are dominant chords that change the key center other than the tonic or the original key. Secondary dominants can be used to create color and tension to your chord progressions. This is Chris with GospelProgressionUniversity.com, and if you haven't yet, go download my free guide, What Do Pro Musicians Know That You Don't?, at GospelProgressionUniversity.com/Gospel Keys Pro. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next video.